take your fears, your insecurities, your worries, you roll them all up into a ball, you turn those son bitches sideways and stick them straight up, then candy out!
Pick your goal and stick fucking to it. You wishy-washy motherfuckers. I can't fucking stand you.
I wanted to make sure that out of the 24 hours of the day, that I don't waste one single hour. Those hours were too precious. And so there I just want to tell people, don't give me this thing, I have a difficult time with the time and I don't have time for this and I don't have that. You have time. You make the time.
And now, welcome to the Be Informed, Live Fit podcast, sponsored by FitnessInformant.com.
About how I triple my fan base, net worth bench. Can't say there's worse, bitch. Do something, fuck it, I prove something. Don't switch up, should have made your best first, bitch. I'm around my shit.
And CEO Ryan Buckeye. Great episode for you all this week. Terrence Ruffin, he is Classic Physique, finished second at the Arnold Classic, but what came from that weekend was all the hype surrounding his posing routine, because I believe that Terrence is the best poser in all of bodybuilding. I had to have him on. I met him back in September. And just, we talk about, during the podcast, we talk about Flex Lewis. We talk about Jay Cutler. And I say that those two are extremely kind, soft-hearted individuals who don't need to be. Terrence and I had dinner together. We hung out together that weekend. And I got to know him a little bit more. And to be completely transparent and honest, and I told him this, I didn't know who he was when I first saw him. But I believe now the world of bodybuilding knows who Terrence is based on his performance at the Arnold, but also he is being just a solid ambassador to the sport of bodybuilding, and he's a fan of the sport, and he's a student of the game. And we talk about when he sat down and we listened to Kai Green talk about the artistry of bodybuilding and posing. And for me, advocates for the sport and people who are passionate about the sport and who love the sport as much as Terrence does and who does all the right things are people the sport needs more of. And I'm super happy we're able to get him here on the podcast. The podcast goes for 50 minutes with him, 51 minutes and 6 seconds, I believe is what it was. So I don't need to spend a lot of time here on the opening. I'm talking about it. But, the Olympia is, as of this recording, I think 13 weeks away in Vegas in December at Planet Hollywood. We're excited about the event this year. We don't know whether or not spectators are going to be allowed at the event. We don't know if there's going to be an expo, but we do know that Terrence will be competing in Classic Physique, going for the Olympia title, going against guys like Chris Bumsfeld, guys like Alex, guys like, just anybody in that division. Also, that weekend is surrounded with a lot of hype with Dexter Jackson's impending retirement, with Phil Heath returning to the sport, and with Brandon Curry feeling disrespected, as nobody's giving him seemingly credit for being the Olympia champion in 2019. If you guys like what you hear on this podcast, hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, or watching via YouTube. Help us out by writing us a review. It helps out the algorithm, good or bad, indifferent. Whatever you feel from the podcast, we appreciate it. I'm going to sit back, shut up, and let my man Terrence Ruffin, we call him, Tough Diesel here as well if you follow him on social media, take over. And we talk about everything from, his childhood to posing to bodybuilding to his coaches. It's a very enlightening conversation with a man I highly respect, and I wish him, obviously, nothing but the best come December and throughout the future of his bodybuilding career.
This is your personal invitation to the Redcon 1 Alpha Team, our new exclusive subscription program. Enjoy members-only access to the Alpha Team apparel collection, priority customer service privileges, early shopping on major deals, exclusive flavor selections, and a whole lot more. This is your opportunity to become a Redcon 1 VIP. There's limited spots available, so go to redcon1.com and sign up today.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back inside the Be Informed Live Fit podcast. If you're watching via YouTube across the screen, in my opinion, you're looking at the best poser in all of bodybuilding, Terrence Ruffin. My man, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing today?
I'm good, dude. I mean, does that ever get old? Because I'm not the only person that's ever said that to you, that they think that you're like the ideal poser. And by poser, like obviously you're not a poser, but like your posing routine is off the charts good.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I hear it more and more as the years go by. It was, since like 2018. So, I'm I'm getting used to it now. Yeah, I'm getting used to the praise finally 2 years later.
I think a lot of people, they look at bodybuilding and it's like, yeah, I want to try my hand at that. I lift weights, I eat right, I can get the body in shape. But what they underestimate is that part. And it's not easy. I mean, to perfect your craft, and I know that you're a perfectionist when it comes to your posing routine, like how many hours a week as you're leading up to a competition are you in a posing room with a posing coach working on your stuff?
Well, I don't have a posing coach. I maybe had a couple people help me when I first started, to learn the basics. But no, I've never had like a posing coach. But as for time in the gym, it's changed over the years. For sure. And it depends on the routine and things like that. But in the beginning, when I first was starting to learn everything, obviously you're going to have to spend a lot more time learning and doing certain things. I would spend maybe an hour after my workout, posing and trying different things out. And, now I don't need to spend quite as much time. And I get a lot of practice still throughout the day from helping posing clients here and there. So it's a little different, but yeah. So the routine I'm working on now, I'm probably going to start it like literally this week. I'm like 13 weeks out, so I'm going to start practicing it now. Mm-hmm. Same, if anyone's interested, Lee Labrada hit me up to help him find songs for his son. So they're getting started soon too. So me and Hunter are starting around the same time. Yeah. I already got my song picked out, luckily. So so about this amount of time, but I've done routines. So like, I've done routines that have taken me about a week just because I had guest postings, back to back to back. So it really just depends.
All right, take me through the process, because do you hire a professional choreographer, or are you doing all your own stuff?
I do all my own stuff, yeah.
I mean, that's impressive, because I know a lot of the open guys, some of the open guys will get choreographers, and I know I think Regan's working with one now. But do you start with? Walk me through the process it takes you to pick the song, because I urge everybody listening and watching this podcast, go back and watch your routine from the Arnold. Like, that's a song that I know you absolutely love, and you killed it with the routine, but it's probably a song most people have never heard before. So it's, for you to find a song and pick the perfect song for your routine, like, how does that process start?
Well, yeah, that's literally the first thing you have to do when you make a routine too. So that's a good place for us to start. Yeah, man. So with that song, it's kind of funny. I found that I originally was going to do a different song, but it didn't feel quite right, the energy of it. So one thing I've learned is you can like a song, but it may not be the right song to have on stage. In my opinion, it has to have a couple qualities. And so you say, for instance, and I'm going to use a couple examples. Let's say for Dexter Jackson, Cedric McMillan, they're great posers. But a lot of times they don't have a single routine that stands out, and I think that's more so the music choice they do, mm-hmm. because if it doesn't evoke a certain emotion or a certain feeling within a person, then they're gonna forget it. With the song I chose for that one, and even the one with Survivor, obviously Survivor was a good song choice. I think even if I would have found a song that I could do the same routine to, and it was just a different song, it wouldn't be as popular. I like songs that have a difference in tempo. So a lot of my songs, they'll start off slower, they'll build up and then they'll hit a crescendo, and then they kind of slow down a bit again. You can almost think of it it's basically all the songs I choose are movie trailers, and that's what they're trying to do in a movie trailer. They're trying to get you to feel something, so you want to go see that movie. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I go into it, because I like certain songs. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of slow. It doesn't have a certain feeling, or this song's too fast the whole time through. It doesn't have any build up to anticipation. So Yeah, it's kind of tough sometimes. Yeah.
So you start with the song. Obviously, you pick it. It means something to you. Then you start writing the routine. And I would assume when you're writing your routine or going through your routine, you obviously want to hit your best poses, right? You want to make sure you get the best angles for the judges. But is it difficult for you to put together, like from picking a song to getting to the point where you're comfortable with that routine that you put together? Is that a lengthy process?
It depends. All of it depends. It depends on the song a lot of times. So like if there's a song, it really depends because I want to do certain things within the routine. Like sometimes I want to have certain transitions or this or that, especially like, let's say if I pick a song and it has words in it, it's not like a instrumental. I want to be able to do certain things that match the words in the song. So I have to kind of think about that, but then also having transitions that work very well, and then also choosing poses that work well with me. That part's getting a lot easier as I put on more size and have a more balanced physique. It was a lot harder like 2 years ago because I'm like, man, I don't look good in like half these poses. But now my arms got a little bit better, my upper body got a little bit better, and now I can hit a lot more poses that I couldn't hit before. So that opens up a lot of opportunities posing wise and posing choice wise for me. So it makes that process easier actually. But yeah. I think that's kind of the next step is for people when they're trying to make a routine, kind of write out the poses that look the best on you, and that's how I kind of do it with people I work with. I'm like, all right, man, let's find out poses you like and the poses that look best, and then from that point on, we put those in first, and then poses that maybe look less good, we can maybe use those to help you get to another like position, because I don't want people just to kind of hit a pose, then kind of muddle about into another one. I want it to flow well, so we may have to throw in a pose that doesn't look quite as good, but it still works to help you get to the next one. Yeah.
A lot of people, bodybuilding fans, have probably watched Pumping Iron. They've seen Arnold do like dance class and take ballet and things of that nature to get him to be a better poser. Anything that you do out of the ordinary that you've done in the past to get you to be a better poser?
Nah, man, just I have a natural talent for it. Yeah. It took me a while, man. It just kind of clicked. I think any professional, there's a mixture of things. There's a mixture of, to be a professional, you need to have both knowledge and experience. And the knowledge comes from just watching other bodybuilders in the past and watching their routines and learning from them. The experience just comes from me just becoming like competing for so long. You know, I've had 2018. That's like, I think that was my first good routine, the Survivor Toronto Pro routine. But before that, I mean, you could see that my routines were never bad. They were always interesting, I think, but it wasn't really polished until that point. And it just, at that point, for some reason, it all clicked. I had enough experience. I can kind of understand things a little bit better. So, but I would like to take some dancing classes, actually. I was looking around, and I think I was looking around at different types of dance classes and stuff like that. And honestly, I think the best one for me would be there's a style of dance called contemporary. Yeah. And I think that's as close as we can get as bodybuilders to like a dance style. Ballet is also a good choice, I mean, but I definitely think contemporary would be better if people are trying to choose a dance class to get into.
What I enjoyed is when we were in South Florida, it was like October, I think, of last year, you and Kai Green had a conversation, quite a long conversation, just about the artistry of bodybuilding and how it's been missing. You know, Kai, great poser. Like, I think everybody can say he does a really good job, and he just on another level. And you were so in tune to that conversation. You're a student of the game. But do you agree with his assessment that that element of artistry, like the beautifulness that comes with posing, has been, let's just say, mediocre at best?
I think overall, yeah, there's definitely, and it's funny, man. Yeah, there's still, like, I will say, people trash, you know, bodybuilders a lot. And they don't like to give credit to the ones that are still doing a great job in the open class. You know, I guess because that's guaranteed. That's what Kai was coming from. Yeah. There's still good posers. Cedric, Dexter, Hidetada is another guy I really like as a poser. Zane Watson, and there's probably a few more I'm spacing on right now, but there's still good pros out there. But like, I think for the amount of pros we have now compared, you know, obviously we usually compare it to like the 70s. For the amount of pros we have now, the amount of good poses we have is definitely less than what we had back in the day. So, yeah, I definitely think it could be there could be more attention paid to it. And I see a lot of guys, they do want to become better. It's just tough for them, you know what I mean? I've worked with a couple pros, open body with the pros myself. So there is some interest in there. It's just sometimes there's a disconnect with some people just need help, you know what I mean? Yeah, because I mean, like De La Rosa and John De La Rosa's reached out to me and a couple other guys. But I will say, yeah, man, I definitely think there is, like, if you're looking at it, back in the 70s, man, they didn't make money from bodybuilding, you know. So they did it just because of the art, just because they loved it, you know. Robbie Robinson most of these guys worked full-time jobs. Even in the beginning, Arnold worked as a construction worker. So I think the difference is now bodybuilders can make a living from competing. Right. Not all of them, but you know, a decent amount. And posing isn't it really isn't required. Like, it's not judged. Only place it's judged is at the Arnold. And the thing is, at the Arnold, you notice the posing's better there than at any other show. Yeah.
Take me back to the Arnold, because interesting year. This is probably one of the first times that probably the only time you competed in a situation that was the Arnold. I mean, we were ready to fly out 4 days before the event, and obviously they canceled the expo, no fans in attendance. It was one of your best showings. I think from the weekend, like a lot of the feedback from the weekend, there was 3 things that came back. 1 was COVID, 2 was Dexter just missed it, and 3 was your posing routine that a lot of people thought you should have walked away with the first place trophy. I being one of them. Alex did a phenomenal job. I thought that you had it at that. Branch Warren once said the toughest loss in his career was finishing second. How tough was it for you?
Oh man, no, it was really tough. Especially now, I'm fine. I'm actually really good and happy. I still would love the Arnold title, the jacket, and everything. But no, at the time it was really hard, and the reason it was hard was my coach had passed away, and this was the last show we had planned to do together, and I was really hoping to kind of take away that first place to kind of put a good end to like our time together. Mm-hmm. So that's what made it really, really difficult for me. I mean, I've lost shows before, and you know, it's whatever. But yeah, that was really tough for me with that. But I will say that the days leading after that show, it's literally one of the best experiences I've ever had. Where I've had like it was 2 Miss Olympias reach out to me and said I did a great job. Guys like Chris Camille, Leela Brother, they talked to me. Tons of people online, you know, said, "Oh, dude, I thought you should have took it." I got the magazine cover. Yep. I got an 8-page spread on the month before this one. So man, like honestly, like recognition wise and like just overwhelming support wise, it was better than any show I've ever won, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've been known, but I believe after March, like people then knew like who you were based on what you've done and what you showed up, and that's no disrespect to what you did beforehand, but that show really kind of like put you on the map and in the eye. And as we lead to December, which is also another interesting component with the Olympia being pushed back, I mean, do you think the Olympia being 3 months later, does that benefit anybody in terms of having an extra couple months to grow, to get their body right for the show in Vegas?
I mean, like it's yes and no. I mean, it kind of doesn't benefit people for like because they did have those first couple months where they couldn't do anything. So I think the timeline is kind of similar still. But yeah, at the same time, it does benefit them because the amount of time they lost, they get it back. So
right.
But as for anything else, I don't think it made a huge deal. Except for people like me. Where I just competed in March, so maybe I need a little bit more time to kind of rest up before another show. That's definitely a good thing for me. But it's kind of like it doesn't really matter, you know.
How do you feel about it, the show? I mean, personally, you said you're kind of just going to start here with you're getting your posing routine and stuff ready. How are you feeling overall in terms of your body? How you feel about the show in December?
I'm very excited, man. Like I'm even bigger than I was at the Arnold starting out, which is awesome. Man, you know, that's definitely that. You know, I definitely have to be that was always my critique. You need to get bigger, blah blah blah. So I'm really happy that my body's finally like, okay, we're growing. And like you said, like my Arnold was my best showing because I took the year off. I didn't compete in 2019 during that contest season. Right. And I'm really happy that it actually paid off, because in my mind I was like, well, what if I took this whole year off and I still look the same and place the same? And I'm like, but I was really happy with the changes that have happened since then. And but no, I feel great. I think I can place top 5. I'm pretty sure I'll place top 5. I'm thinking the best I can get is maybe like a 3rd place this year, just being realistic with myself. I think
that hard, that right there, like being realistic with yourself, is that difficult? Because obviously you want to win, right? You're going against going against last year's champion in Bumstead. You're going against the Arnold Classic champion in Alex yourself. I mean, I think people look at it, they're like, well, he says the best he might finish is 3rd. Like, why isn't he shooting for 1st? Well, obviously you're shooting for 1st, right? But like, is it hard? I think it's funny, man. Some people they place how hard they work on how well they'll do at a show, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna train as hard as I can, no matter what. Because it's always funny. I get clients coming to me, and they say, what do I need to work on? Like when they get to a contest, I'm like, dude, you should have been working this whole time hard. You know what I mean? There should be no difference. And me being realistic, is anything wrong with that? Chris Bumstead is an amazing athlete. Breon is also an amazing athlete, and he's got 10 years on me too, so he's been doing this 10 years, he's 10 years older than me, I think. And I don't think there's any issue with me saying something like that. I definitely believe that I can beat them, and I've beaten Chris once. I haven't beaten Breon yet, but I think it's possible looking at shots. I'm just realistic and knowing I'm not quite where I need to be to do that, and I know I still have plenty of room to grow, which is awesome, and I have time to get there. So I think for some people, knowing that they won't do well at a show, I think I'm gonna do well, but knowing that they won't get 1st, they kind of half-ass it. But that's not how I do things. Would it shock you if you finish top 2? If I beat Breon or Chris and I place top, I would be extremely happy. It would be no downside to that that whole weekend if I place top 2. Even top 3, man. Top 5, I would be sad. I would be okay with. What's the word? But I would definitely be ready to go. I'd be ready to get back to work and do better. Top 2, I'd be like, oh man, let me enjoy this for a second. Let me, Who are you working with right now as you go in the Olympia in terms of your coaching staff? Like who's on Team Terrence right now? Okay. John Meadows is doing my diet and my supplements. I've been working with him for about a year now. Yeah, it was a year in August. We started prep for Niagara Falls show, and the funny thing is I did that show just because I needed help getting back on track after Matt passed away. So we did that show. And I actually needed to do that show to do the Arnold, and I won that show, and they qualified me for this year's Olympia. So it all worked out, So, John, and then also my trainer is Joe Bennett. Yep. We train every day together. I think he has been one of the biggest reasons for the changes I've had over, in between that year I took off. Right. So, those are people in my corner right now. Still supplements, they're my sponsors and everything. Right. So shout out to them. But yeah. Jason at Steel Supplements is still jacked as shit too, by the way. Just massive. Yeah, Jason doesn't. It's funny. He doesn't train that often anymore, but he's still bigger than like most of the people. For sure. The world. You have been, I guess, blessed with a series of pretty solid coaches. Obviously, we can talk with Matt. And Matt Porter is just. We had Matt on the podcast. Friends with Matt. Shocked, just like everybody else. When that news came down, and how did you find Matt? I guess let's start with that. Matt is extremely credible. Like I said, he is a great person. I don't know how many people know that as a person. He was a fantastic person and a great coach. Yeah. I think, and you kind of see it too when he passed, and the amount of people who reached out and supported and sent money to his wife and his son. Right. It was I was really, honestly, I was a bit surprised that he had that effect on that many people. Right.
But I met Matt in 2004, not in person, but I contacted him in 2014. I was working with a local guy. He's still a friend of mine, Caleb Wetherington, but he knew his knowledge was limited, and he said, "Hey, man, I think you should find someone who can kind of help take you to like the next level." And I was like, okay. And so I reached out to a couple people. I was 21 at the time, and I didn't have a lot of money, so I reached out to one guy. He was like, "This is the price." I couldn't afford that. And then I reached out. I was talking to one of Matt's clients, and I told him I really liked Matt and what he was doing, and somehow he reached out to Matt, and Matt gave me like a discount on his price, which was, I was like, okay, well, that's really, really nice of him.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I started working with him. I didn't meet him until 2016 during our first Olympia together. I stayed at his house and got to kind of really know him and everything that way. But yeah, it was almost 2 years before I actually met him in person.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, but you go from Matt and then, which is crazy because John is also just like an amazing human being. But we had a scare with John this year too. And I was just talking to Sean Cleardo about this, right? Like you get the call, you get the text, you're like, right away, for me anyway, when I got the text, I was like, my mind went to the worst case scenario right away. How did you take that news when you heard about John?
Dude, it's hard, man. Like, because I've already been through the situation, man. It was really, I just kind of sat at home and didn't do anything. Like when I get stressed, like I don't really eat, so I just kind of sat and did nothing. That's kind of what I do when I get stressed, man. But that was. Yeah.
Did it surprise you that John was back in the gym like super quick, just nailing heavyweight again?
I don't know, man. I'm just happy he's doing all right. I remember he talked to me. I called him I don't know how soon after, but I called him. I didn't want to call like right when everything happened because he's probably got a million people. So I called him and he told me kind of the situation. He's like, yeah, he said he was feeling funny. And like, he said it wasn't like a super bad one where like you pass out and stuff like that. He just knew he didn't feel right. So he called the ambulance and like he just walked on the back in the ambulance. And yeah, he just talked to him the whole time. So it was never, every heart attack is serious, but it wasn't one of the ones that you see where people like literally fall to the floor and like, so, I guess I'm still surprised, but I was kind of happy that he was doing good. He was up and moving around quickly,
For sure. Have you ever trained with John?
Yeah. Funny thing, first thing I met John was in 2015. First time I met John was actually 2014 at Nationals. I didn't know who he was at the time. I was still new to bodybuilding. I just remember I was like, who's this guy, this big dude? And he had all these freckles. I was like, oh, okay. And so that's my first thought when I saw him for the first time. He ended up coming down to my gym to do a seminar, and same thing. I knew the gym owners, like I didn't have a lot of money, and I ended up what I did. He said I could train with him if I just helped promote his event. So, I did that. I got to have an arm session with him, and then we had sushi together, and that's the first time I got to hang out with John. that had to be 2015, and was it 4 years later I ended up working with him. Right. So yeah.
Let's talk about Joe then, hypertrophy coach, who a lot of people know who he is. He has a unique way of training, more science-based training, I think, than anything, but he's still old school in some of the stuff that he does. When you went to Joe, how much of your training did you have to adapt and change based on kind of his philosophies?
Cool. So Joe came to me, actually.
Okay.
He reached out to me after, I want to say sometime after the Tampa Pro. He DM'd me. He's like, hey, man, I'm a fan, and but I see that there's some things with the training that could be better. And, obviously I knew. So the backstory is, like, I knew I had an issue with gaining size, and I knew there was something wrong. Because I turned pro in 2014, so there was no Classic Physique. So I was trying to get bigger for the 212. So I spent 2015 trying to gain size. I turned pro at 155 pounds. the Tampa Pro, I was 157. So I was like, okay, well, so this wasn't not much. I mean, I look different, but I'm like, oh, not much weight was gained here. So I need to find something quick. So I ended up going down there, 6.5 hour drive, and I trained with him. And the biggest thing was he pushes you a lot harder to take things to failure. Most pros, to be honest with you, and most pros will tell you too, most pros don't take anything to failure. Right. And that's not saying they're not training hard or anything like that. It's just a different type of training. More volume and stuff like that is what most guys do, getting the pump, blood in the muscle, whatever. I did that forever, and that wasn't really working for me. So I ended up coming to him, taking sets further, progressively overloading, tracking my sets, my reps, and all that, my weight. And the coolest thing was I spent maybe 2 days there. We trained twice a day, and I remember telling him, I was like, man, like the coolest thing was I was like, man, I'm not winded after this workout, but my legs are like destroyed. Yeah. You know, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I thought about that, and even for my body type, where like I'm a smaller dude naturally, I think lower volume helps because I don't need to be in there burning a ton of calories anyway, you know. So it changed completely. I learned the progressive overload, taking sets further, and I learned better exercise selection. I've learned a lot from being around him, man. I've learned a lot, and it's helped my business, and it helps me to be able to work from home and do a podcast at 3:27 in the evening. You know,
on Friday, yeah. No, I love Joe. I think Joe is one of the more intelligent trainers within this space. I mean, I worked with Matt Jansen. He did very similar too. He obviously like going heavier, going to failure, less reps, just heavier weight, and I put on size pretty quick too, just working with that. But before that, I was doing the same as you. A lot of more volume work and blood flow.
Strength isn't a slogan.
You want to win this year?
Yes, no! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time!
It's not an image you find on billboards or the big screen. It's never been about any of that. It's all around you, in everyday moments, just waiting to be unleashed. Strength is the knowledge that inside you lies anything you've ever wanted to be. The confidence that your failures never define you, and the passion and purpose to drive beyond any limits placed upon you. When you call upon it, strength embraces you, challenges you, pulls you back up, no matter how many times you fall. It compels you to draw on courage, resilience, intensity, and hope, and expects your very best to help others find theirs. True strength demands you build more than muscle, not in pursuit of a personal best, but a better tomorrow for everyone.
Adding my product is going to help you get to where you want to be.
5%ers is 5% of the people in the world that are willing to do whatever it takes to reach their goals. We're talking about business, success, education, willing to do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
For the last 2 decades, we have been the best kept secret of the supplement industry. we've kept our heads down and worked. We pioneered full label transparency and full therapeutic doses because we believe that truly hard work requires truly effective tools. 2 decades is a long time to commit to one pursuit, but when you act with purpose and become centered in yourself, eventually you realize that you were born and bred for this. The things you once thought impossible, you now do every day. We don't like the easy way, it just doesn't feel right. We'll take the long, hard road over a shortcut any day. It takes longer, sure, but in the end, you know you earned it. And with the right team behind you, pushing yourself further than you've ever been would be just another afternoon doing what you love most.
What has been take the Arnold out of it because I think that might be one of your highlights. But besides the Arnold, like what's been the highlight of your career thus far?
Well, definitely the Arnold's the highlight.
Right.
But man, I've had a couple cool, and I don't have one, man. I love a lot of the experiences I've gotten to have, man. I'll keep them real brief though. But let's see, my highlights have been being able to travel. I've been to El Salvador, one of the best experiences I've ever had in 2017. I honestly, I was kind of like having a weird like relationship with bodybuilding at the time. I went there and it kind of renewed like my love of the sport. Just because of the fans and how much they loved it. I'm like, yo, like if, so that was one thing I really, really appreciated. Another highlight would be Lee Labrada. I got to meet Lee Labrada, and he said he was a fan of my posing and that I was carrying on the torch. I literally think Lee Labrada is the best poser ever, above anybody else you can name. Frank Zane, Kai Green, I like those guys, but I hold Lee Labrada to the highest. And for him to say that, like, he got me in my feels. And I'll say the last highlight might have been my first Olympia. I had a lot of stuff like kind of go wrong, and for it to kind of happen was awesome. My information got stolen on the way there, so I couldn't use my card. My jaw locked up, so I couldn't eat any solid food. Jesus. And it happened that I had to go to the ER the night before the show. They gave me like some Valium or something. I think it was Valium, and then a muscle relaxer. Man, it was so getting through that was pretty awesome, man. I'll never forget that. That was a crazy time. Yeah.
Tell me, all right. So let's hit the rewind button and tell me about your childhood growing up. Where'd you grow up? What things were you into?
I grew up in I grew up in Alabama. I lived in two places during my time there. My younger years were mostly spent in Mobile, Alabama, and then around high school, I moved, and I ended up living in a very small town because we went to take care of my grandmother. Mm-hmm. We moved to Beatrice, Alabama, population maybe 300.
Sure.
So, So I grew up there. I was into, most kids into video games, playing outside.
Right.
I didn't know anything about bodybuilding or anything like that. I played sports, football, track. that was it. A little bit of kickboxing before I got to high school, but yeah. I mean, mostly I'm just a normal kid, I think. Yeah.
I feel like football is one of those sports at times that obviously introduce kids to the weight room at a young age as you lift as part of team practices. But where in your spectrum of life did you discover bodybuilding and why? I mean, did somebody push you towards it? Was it, I mean, or it's like one of those things, right? You get bullied and you want to fight back, so you get bigger. I mean, what's your story and how you found the sport?
Yeah. So I wasn't bullied in high school, man. Luckily, when you're in a small town like that, the new kid is like the most interesting thing in the world,
Sure.
you know? So I was bullied in middle school, but I got into bodybuilding after I failed out of TAC. It's called TAC P training. It's kind of like a special forces in the Air Force.
Okay.
So I fell out of that, and then there was a gym across the street, and I started training. Still didn't know anything about bodybuilding, but I put on like 20 pounds. Actually, at that point, I put on about 10, 15 pounds in maybe 2-3 months, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And so I get my new job. They put me in avionics, and I end up meeting these group of people, and they say, hey, man, maybe you should look into bodybuilding. So some classmates of mine in the course.
Sure.
So I look into it. I find this magazine, Dexter Jackson's on the cover.
Of course.
And it's, first bodybuilder I ever saw, Dexter Jackson. And at that point, I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. So that's kind of how I found out about it.
Sure. Tell me about your time in the Air Force then. I mean, it's those are decisions that you make. And you make them as a child. You're in high school, right? Typically when you make the decision to do those things. Was there a reason? I mean, was there family history within the military? Just something that you thought might be you're interested in, or what's the story there?
So two things. One, I was in ROTC in high school, and I really, really loved that. I grew up with a single mom, and the guy, Major Brown, he was kind of like a father figure.
Sure.
He was I liked him a lot. Very, smart, intelligent man, very professional and everything like that. So I really enjoyed the structure from that. I held like a cool position. They gave you like responsibilities and things like that. So I really enjoyed that. And so that was the one reason why I chose the Air Force, because it was Air Force ROTC.
Sure.
The other reason was I was kind of burnt out in school, man. Burnt out. I graduated in 3 years, so I tested out of all my senior classes, and I just didn't want to go to college. I was tired of school, but my mom was like, you can't just sit around.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So that's kind of the reason I chose that. That's the kind of reason I chose that. Yeah.
Very cool. And how long did you spend in before? I mean, you kind of were able to do the thing now that you're doing.
6 years.
6 years.
So you can choose like a 4 or 6 year contract. I chose the 6 year contract, and at the end of it, my contract ended in 2017, and at that point I had already did one Olympia. I had a decent sponsor and things like that. So yeah. My wife at the time, I was a little nervous, but my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, she encouraged me. She's like, well, you could probably do better. I think the Air Force is kind of holding you back because you have to do PT tests and stuff like this. And she's like, well, maybe you should give this a full shot. And so I was like, okay.
Cool.
So it's kind of nervous, man, because they kind of scary. They kind of make it scary. And then the thing is too, with the military, they do so much for you.
Right.
Like I had to learn, and like me being 17 when I joined, I didn't know how insurance worked or how to do certain things, and I had to kind of learn that. I never had to do like job applications or anything like that. So it was a little nervous, getting out, but it really wasn't that bad. Once everything was said and done.
Yeah. Coming from a guy who was predominantly raised by his mother, and with you as well, like, what did they become kind of our best friends, right? Like they're like this mentor, the person we want to make happy. The bodybuilding route. What did your family think of that?
No, my mom's very supportive. My first progress photos, my mom took.
Oh, really?
I told her, once I was done with like the schooling. So the schooling, so I said, remember when I said I found the magazine? Actually, I watched out of TAC P, and then I did the other job. That took 6 months. So after that 6 months, I came back home for a little bit, and I told my mom that's what I wanted to do. And she was like, okay. And I was like, did you want to? And I was like, hey, you want to take progress photos for me? And she's like, yeah. So literally my first photos were taken by my mom, which is pretty awesome. She's been to pretty much every show except two. One, because I told her last minute, because I had no idea I was going to do it.
Right.
And two, the other one was just she couldn't get time off of work. So, yeah, she's pretty much been to every show I've done. And,
awesome.
Yeah, very, very supportive.
Do you have siblings?
I have a brother from my father.
Sure.
I keep in contact with him, but we didn't grow up together.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool that your mom makes. I mean, because a lot of times family members, they want to support, but they don't understand the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about being in the Air Force and being involved in the military, those in my life who've been involved in the military seem to have very strong connections with classmates or people that they were, in the military with. Do you have like a very niche, close group of friends from there, or even outside the military that is now part of your inner circle?
No, man. One thing I've noticed from obviously I didn't graduate, but I still got an idea of like the special forces and stuff like that. The military, just like anything, each job has different different vibes, I guess. So like I noticed with the guys that went through special forces, we were very close going through that, because you kind of have to be, because you see these guys every day. They're trying to get us to work on team where if this guy shit isn't right, then everybody suffers,
right.
Type deal. So we got really, really close. And even then, I still talk to a couple of them, like not consistently, but
sure.
One of them, Lance, he owns a company called Thigh Huggers now. He does that. It's a pretty big business now, and he just the other day he was going to send me some to kind of try out. So, but in my other job, obviously, and I think any job that requires combat, the guy's going to be a lot closer.
Yep.
But I noticed in my other job, avionics, it wasn't the same at all, because there was no reason for us to have to do anything like that to build those type of bonds. Like, everyone's cool, we hang out, but it wasn't the same, It's kind of like, if you play a sport, football, basketball, whatever, you typically get really close with your teammates, more so than just say someone else in like your history class. A lot of times,
For sure.
The kind of same thing there.
Well, it's like you're in bodybuilding, and you guys, for lack of a better term, you guys go to battle together on the stage. I mean, you guys I think for the most part, most bodybuilders like to support one another now. Obviously, there's going to be some trash talking, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it once was. I mean, within the sport, do you have some people who you consider pretty close friends?
Yeah, man. I'm trying to. Another issue I have is staying in contact with people. I get so busy with life sometimes, man. You forget. So that's one thing I've really been working on this year, is to build connections that I have, and make them a priority. I'm really cool with Ricky Moten, man. He's a really good guy. You guys, he competed at the Arnold with me. I know his wife, his kid. They're awesome. She's from El Salvador, so that's another thing we have in common. It's really cool. So I think I talk to him the most now. There's some other pros that I know that live in Tampa that my friend Joe, Joe Lally, he doesn't compete too often anymore, but he turned pro and he's local here. But no, I try to keep in contact with as many people as I can.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a little tough.
This year, let's talk about the Olympia again here as we kind of wrap things up. But this year's Olympia is unique because it's in a different time, right? It's at Plant Hollywood. It's at an amazing facility. Like, it's gonna. I mean, I don't want to discredit the Orleans Arena by any means, but the new placement of the show is going to be leaps and bounds better for both the competitors and the viewing audience, should we be allowed to view it. A lot has been said about obviously being Dexter's last year. We have Flex jumping up to the Open, and we have Phil Heath coming back. So let's talk about that Open a little bit. As a bodybuilding fan, are you excited?
Dude, I love it, man. This year is going to be amazing, dude. Like, yeah. I'm really, really excited for it, man. Yeah, like you said, Dexter, it's kind of bittersweet. First bodybuilder I ever met, ever saw, retiring. So definitely it's going to be kind of weird. And I kind of got a connection with him. My cousin is best friends with his daughter and his son-in-law. They went to the Air Force Academy together.
That's cool.
I remember when his daughter first went to the academy, I literally called my cousin up. I said, "Hey man, Dexter Jackson's daughter is like just making it there today. You need to find her and be friends with her. And he ended up doing it. Yeah. So I don't know. He ended up working out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was there at their wedding and everything like that. So he goes to the house every now and again. So, no, so we got, it's kind of weird that he's retiring now, but, I'm happy for Flex. I finally got to hang out with Flex like 2 weeks ago and train at his gym and meet him. And I'll say this, man, there's not many pros that I've met that I'm a fan, like that inspire me, that after I meet them, I have that same type of feeling. I may still respect them, but it's not quite as high, you know what I mean? Flex Lewis and Lita Brada, once I met them, nothing changed. I still am like a super fan. Yeah, man, Phil coming back, I'm excited. I'm a big fan of Brandon Curry. I love him as an ambassador for the sport. I wish he would have been able to do more, but, you can't really do much this year. But even the stuff he was doing, like, before everything shut down, like talking to schools, going to different events, most people don't do that,
So let's.
So
this is not to stir up any drama at all, Terrence. But does Brandon Curry? I think if I'm Brandon Curry, I feel disrespected because everybody's talking about Phil returning. Everybody's talking about the Blade retiring, and a lot of people have said that his win last year was a fluke because Phil wasn't there and Sean wasn't there. So I don't know if you know him personally, but if you were Brandon Curry and you've heard these rumblings, like, would that fuel your training and fuel you to be the best you possibly can be in December?
So, from what I've watched a lot of Brandon Curry interviews since he became I watch every time I'm at the Olympia. I watch these guys' interviews, and you learn stuff about them, and it's funny because it's simple stuff like when Phil Heath lost his Olympia, he literally said he wasn't going to compete last year. A lot of people don't know that, and he said because of the surgery, the first surgery he had, it didn't heal, and he said this year I'm having 2, so I know I can't compete this year. But people forget. So anyway. Watching his interviews, because Brandon gets a lot of shit, even from other Miss Olympics, which has got to suck. Dorian Yates said he wouldn't place top 10. Ronnie Coleman laughed and said something similar. He handles stuff very, very well, man. I don't know if he just confides in maybe his wife and his close friends, but every time I see him speak upon stuff like that, he has nothing but respect for those people that still talking negatively to him, and he just takes it in stride, man. Which, but I know if it was me, yeah, I would feel like I have something to prove for sure. I definitely would feel like I have something to prove. I think he probably still does feel like it,
sure,
because I remember seeing some interviews saying he wasn't at his best, and he said he think he can do better. So, yeah, man. Yeah, it's definitely if he can get this one, it would be awesome. Obviously, no one knows what Phil's looks like right now. They just saw that one photo he posted with a tank top.
Yeah, which was like just a couple that was just recently, wasn't it?
Yeah. His wife posted it, and people saw that one photo and was like, he's gonna win the Miss Olympia. I was like, how can you? His issue was his stomach, and that's the one thing he's hiding in this photo. It's never been his shoulders and arms. His arms always look epic, So yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited to see how Brandon does, man. And I wish him nothing but the best. I will say if Phil is at his best, then I really don't see how Brandon could win it. But if Phil is off again, I think Brandon could definitely hold his own against him.
Yeah, and then if Dexter brings what he brought in the Arnold too, he looked good. Again, people were like Bonac Dexter. It was 1A, 1B, very similar to like your spot, right? It should be interesting. And obviously, let's not forget about Flex Lewis being up there. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what he looks like. No one's talking about him because they can only see him, how he's looked in the 212. But I guarantee you,
well, you just saw him 2 weeks ago, right? But here's the thing, any pictures he posts online, he's always wearing big baggy stuff, so nobody really sees.
Yeah, I don't know what he looks like. Yeah, no idea. No idea.
So a lot of people think he's going to do well, and I hope he does.
I think he's going to do well. I think he could be top 5 for sure. Anything outside that, I have no idea.
Yeah, you just said too, he's one of the guys that you walked away from, with an all-time high respect level. him and Jay Cutler are the two nicest people I've ever met. Like in terms of just, and they didn't have to be, right? But they are just, they were sweethearts of people, just great to talk to. So that's cool. 212 will be interesting this year. Like I said, we had Sean Clure down here a couple weeks ago. He's obviously, you guys are attached through John Meadows. I think my favorite division in bodybuilding is yours. I think it's the best look. I like the way that you guys look. We don't need to get into the stomach issues because I think hopefully we're getting past that in terms of the open. But your physiques are just, to me, they're the best looking, and I'm stoked about what you guys bring to the table. What's outside of you competing? Are you most looking forward to the open this year?
Actually, I think a lot of the classes are going to be interesting. Definitely the open for sure. It's a lot of new factors in that one. 212 should be interesting too. You got Kamal coming back to try to defend his title. Derek, George is the wild card now coming in. We'll see how Keon does at his pro debut and see how, it depends on that if he makes it or not. But he's looking good. He's looking great. Obviously, Sean, I feel like I have a lot of similarities with him, not physique-wise, but each and every year he's getting better and better. He hasn't hit like a lot of pros. They get to a certain point and they stop making improvements.
Right. Yeah, every year he's improved. Last year he finished third, so this could be.
And even not just placing wise though, like I think I saw he put on maybe like 7 pounds this year or something, and even for him that's a lot. That's 7 pounds for anybody is a lot, but for him that's a lot. Being 5'2", I think. That's crazy. So yeah, man. Like I can't, like every time I think of that's the best his physique's gonna look. He's just like, oh nope, gonna keep growing and building, man.
Well, I also think is great about the weekend, and I don't want to leave the podcast without talking about it, is that the Mrs. Olympia is back. Like the female title is back, and Jake Wood is a big proponent of that because he obviously has been a huge supporter of females in bodybuilding. As am I. I know you are too. I think we all are. The women work extremely hard. But
get nothing for it, really.
Exactly, nothing. And sometimes they don't even get a table, at the meet and greets. So the new leadership of the Olympia, we're kind of seeing it in motion now. They're working quickly to move things around. Are you excited about the future of the sport?
I'm very, I'm just seeing what Jake did with women's bodybuilding. That gives me a lot of hope, for sure. He did a lot for those women, man. He had them like on contracts to travel around, like the Women's the Strength team. The prize he gave for the Rising Phoenix, which is like it was like the best show they could do for them for a while. He gave out a car, he gave out money. I think Helly Trevino's won it. I think the last 2 years, I think. So I'm excited to see what he does with this show, and shout out to those women for continuing and bringing it back.
Yeah. I think that him and Dan Solomon have been doing a good job of incorporating some entertainment aspects to it. Next year we have the Rock Show, finally. That was supposed to happen this year. So, we don't know what that's going to be like, but that sounds like it could be super exciting, which is all good news for this sport, to bring some maybe new eyeballs into it. So, dude, I wish you nothing but the best. Hopefully, if they allow spectators and everything goes on as planned, we will be there. We will be covering it. And I think you're going to do well. I would not – top three's – that top three is attainable, Terrence. You got this.
Yeah, man, I'm excited, man. I will say, dude, I've been doing this since the beginning for Classic, man, and each and every year, the physiques that pop up get crazier and crazier. I want shout out to DeAndre Campbell. Dude looks fantastic. There's this. He's in South America. I can't think of where. I think his name's like Fabian or something. Okay. He looks crazy. I remember watching him. He turned pro, and literally, I think the same day or the next day, he competed as a pro and won his trip to the Olympia. There's some other guys too that have been looking very, very good. Logan, he just won the show. Dude, every year, man. I remember the funny thing is a lot of guys who were at the Olympia. I was just looking at it today because it popped up in my archives 4 years ago. A lot of guys in Olympia wouldn't make it today, to be honest with you. Yeah. You look at guys like Arash. Arash is still there, but he's been dropping lately. Danny Hester, first Classic ever has been dropping. And there's a lot of other names in that top 5, that top 10 that can't even make it anymore.
Right.
So, it's just a blessing to be able for my physique to progress to keep up with this talent, man. Yeah.
Well, we live in the world, obviously, social media, right? You can look at their progress pics and whatever they post online. But as your coach says, John's very notorious for this. Do not do the compare and despair model. Like, focus on your shit and do the best that you can, right? Because it'll get in your head if you start looking at somebody else and say, God damn, that dude's going to finish 1-2. I mean, I need at least whatever, right? But
Dude, I'm a fan of the sport, so I know my opinion isn't very good. Like, I'm always looking at guys backstage and like, oh, these dudes look awesome. And then I beat them, so yeah.
Well, because you see yourself every single day, right? You're the world's biggest critic of your own self. So I think, like I said, I think you're going to do great. I'm excited to see your posing routine. And I think the whole world is excited just about, bodybuilding being back in the center eye. So I appreciate you coming on. If you guys want to follow Terrence, he is on all the social media platforms at @rough_diesel on Instagram. Any other plugs? You also do posing coaching as well, correct?
Yeah, just roughdiesel.com.
Yeah. So, and I mean, whatever the price of admission is, pay it because this dude is the best in the business. So, I appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man.
Boom, there you have it, my boy Terrence Ruffin. I think, Terrence is a realist, right? Says top 5. And I appreciate that. I respect that because a lot of people might say and live under a rock and say, I'm going to win. And I mean, I think Terrence obviously is going to be his biggest critic, right? He's going to look at other people, and you hear him say it. Like, backstage, he sees somebody, he's like, man, that guy looks good. He focuses on his shit, and he's got the coaches to remind him of that, and John Meadows and hypertrophy coach Joe Bennett. And anything is possible in December. Anybody can bring an A package. Somebody can take a step back. We just don't know until we get there. So, he's working on his posing routine now. Training starts now. It is game time starting now. And I'm super excited for him. And I think, again, like I said in the open, that he's a huge a benefit to the sport. He's an advocate for the sport. He's a fan favorite. If you don't know who he is yet, you definitely will. He's young, and like I said to him, I think the classic physique is, in my opinion, my favorite category because I think the bodies and the physique looks the best. And it'll be super interesting to see how he does. And I obviously wish him nothing but the best, and I think he's going to do extremely well. If you like what you heard here on the podcast, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, watching via YouTube. Hit that subscribe button as well. Help us out by writing us a review. Helps out the algorithm. Fitnessinformant.com is our web platform. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and all those as well. Fitness Informant. Until next time, I am Buckeye.